I'm Miss Laco, and I am a board certified behavior analyst, and I work at Julie Billiard School in Akron. This is part of a series of resources for parents to use during distance learning due to this global pandemic and also beyond. So today's presentation, entitled So, How Does It Work?, focuses on the ABCs of behavior. You'll see what they stand for in just a minute, and how to use them, and to see how small adjustments can make a big difference. So let's get going. So before and after, I talk about behavior a lot. I eat, sleep, and breathe it. That is my job. But as board certified behavior analysts, it's not just behavior that we focus on. We also look at things that happen before and after behavior occurs. So we use what's called the ABCs. So A is for antecedent, B for behavior, and C is for consequence. Without examining those variables, it's typically difficult to come up with a set of strategies that would be effective when trying to combat problematic behavior. So that's why the ABCs are so important. So before we move on, I just want to say a big thing to note throughout this presentation is the word behavior. When I use that word behavior, it covers all actions and behaviors, not just negative. So it's as easy as ABC, kinda. So we focus on antecedents and consequences. So the antecedent, that letter A, is what happens immediately before behavior. And consequence, which is that letter C, is what happens immediately following a behavior. So consequences are usually associated with the negative, like getting grounded, but it's really anything that can happen, positive or negative. Our lives are shaped by consequences, like speeding tickets, good grades, paycheck, weight loss, etc. And consequences also determine the future likelihood of a behavior, either positive or negative, occurring or not occurring again in the future. So the ABCs, like I said, A stands for antecedent. This one comes first. They are anything that can cause a behavior to occur, like a light being on. If you think about it, you'll eventually engage in a behavior to turn it off. Or the fact that it's raining outside, so you'll probably engage in the behavior of opening your umbrella. Kind of a real life term for antecedents are triggers. People use that word a lot, and they are negative antecedents, which usually cause undesirable or even dangerous behaviors to occur. So we really do use that word in everyday life. So B stands for behavior, and that is any action, anything that we engage in as a human being. So good, bad, anything. And then the letter C is consequence. This comes last. And they're anything that occur immediately following a behavior. So these can also be positive or negative. And they can also be everyday responses. So one of the things that I do when we encounter a new behavior at JB, I always ask the teachers what happens before and what happens afterwards. 99.9% of the time, I also have them take very detailed data for me so that I can look for patterns. So there's specific ABC data actually that matches right up with these that I have them do. So why are the ABCs so important? So everything we do in our life is affected by antecedents and consequences in some form. So that is, there's a reason why we do what we do and why we continue or not continue to do it. So we break behavior down into what's called a three-term contingency. So antecedent, behavior, consequence. And sometimes simple adjustments to antecedents or consequences can make a world of difference when dealing with problematic behavior. And as a BCBA, I always use applied behavior analysis. And so one principle of ABA that everybody's heard of, and it is used often, is positive reinforcement. So positive reinforcement is actually an example of a consequence strategy or intervention. So you see a behavior you like, if you reward it consistently. So we're talking about, simple things like high five, way to go, not a toy or anything, or candy. So chances are that behavior will increase. So examples of a three-term contingency. I'm going to give you an everyday action as well as a real life scenario. So with that everyday action, the light is on. That's our antecedent. The behavior is flipping the light switch, and the consequence is the light turning off. So this is really governed by both that antecedent and consequence. So because the light is on, I want to turn it off. Also, since flipping the switch caused the light to turn off when I wanted it to, I will probably use the light switch every day. So it's basic cause and effect. A real life scenario. So woke up late and I'm running behind. That's our antecedent. So my behavior was driving over the speed limit, and my consequence is getting a speeding ticket. How often does that happen, right? So, well, what can I do in the future? So I can adjust my antecedent, like maybe being proactive and setting the alarm earlier. In an ideal world, if I get up earlier, I probably won't be running behind, and the likelihood of me speeding will decrease. And then what's the effect of the consequence? It'll probably cause me to be more mindful of my speed in general, because getting a speeding ticket really stinks. So a little bit more about that antecedent behavior consequence. So when you deal with problematic behaviors, it's very good to be aware of what occurs before and after behavior. So it can cause us to think of ways to be proactive to get ahead of these behaviors. So these are known as antecedent adjustments or interventions, or AKA proactives. And during distance learning, that's why we would always talk about the importance of schedules and timers and warnings and things like that. So it can also allow us to reflect on our actions that we take or our reactions to a certain behavior, whether they're positive or negative. So things like, how did my reaction or what I did affect my child's behavior? Did it stop the behavior? Did it exacerbate the situation? Did a huge blow up occur? And then what's the likelihood that this reaction or what I did will cause the behavior to happen or not happen again? And it can also cause us to be mindful about how we handle problematic behavior next time to decrease the likelihood of it happening again. And these are known as consequence adjustments or interventions, AKA reactives. So what can we do for distance learning? Some proactives or antecedent strategies: modifying your environment, like a designated workspace, flex seating, things like that. Making an environment less overstimulating. Modifying assignments, visual schedules, schedules in general, timers, warnings, token boards, consistent routines, built-in breaks, controlled choices, and clear expectations. Good tip for that is using that first then or if then language. If you would like more details on these strategies, please check out the Independence and Motivation webinar for more in-depth explanations. Some reactives that we can use with distance learning, those are consequence strategies: positive reinforcement, like high fives, behavior-specific praise, time with a preferred item, like an iPad or a toy. Trying certain antecedent strategies again. So assignment modification, chunking, changing the work environment. Taking a break is another one. Or withholding attention or ignoring attention-seeking behavior. So you want to ignore that attention-seeking behavior and then reinforce appropriate means behavior of attention-seeking behavior. So withholding means to get out of work or not allowing your student to escape, and reinforcing compliance. Waiting out or not giving into tantrums and reinforcing that calm behavior instead. Prompting through an assignment if necessary. Giving a token if you're using a token board. Or prompting appropriate communication. So for example, having your child ask for something versus grabbing it without asking, or tapping your shoulder versus yelling loudly to get your attention. And same as the proactives. If you would like more details about that, check out that Motivation Independence webinar. So what's more effective with problematic behavior, the antecedent adjustments or the consequence interventions? So our proactives are to be used up front to attempt to get ahead of behaviors. So use them before the behavior even has a chance to occur, and really think of them as preemptive strikes. The reactives or consequence strategies are to be used if or after behavior occurs. So they can be used in general, like giving tokens if you're using a token board, or withholding attention or escape, or if those proactives fail. And handling particular problematic behaviors a certain way affects the likelihood of behaviors occurring or not occurring in the future. Well, thanks so much for watching. So if you have any questions, comments, need any specifics, feel free to shoot me an email. My email address is mlaco, Laco, @jvschool.org. And as always, if there's anything you'd like to see more of, please let me know. Thanks so much.